Hi, Jonathan.
Hey
How are you?
Rachel, I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. So to start, one of the things I like about this movie is it felt very much like Daniel Russo was in it the entire time. It felt very Italian to me as an Italian girl. Because I was like, boxing, yeah, we love boxing. And like mixing that with Lee's appreciation of Kung Fu was so cool to me. How was it building that out and making it feel like a natural kind of collaboration between those two sports when they're not necessarily linked.
Yeah, look, I think it was it kind of all goes back to New York, honestly. It was like how can we paint a picture? Because the original Karate Kid is like it's so iconically LA. It's so like lamely about the valley, which is like part of the joke, like the all valley, cool, you know? And I think that was very much a character throughout a lot of the pieces of the franchise. With this, we wanted the idea of like, well, look, there is a Peter Parker quality to the Lee Fong character or a Miles Morales quality to him. So I was like, well, how do we play in that world? Let's build out a New York, a cozy version of New York, a comic book version of New York where Queens is 5 minutes from Central Park. Like that's something that you see, and certainly I grew up with a lot of that. It's a movie New York. So then with that came, well, what can we play with? Like we love the idea of the pizza shop and the Italian American connection, and because that to me felt weirdly like something you hadn't seen that recently in a version of New York. New York's all slick and cool and gritty and grimy, and I was like, well, no, it never used to be portrayed like that. So that to me was something that was quite interesting in the overall aesthetic. You want that pizza shop to feel like, hey, I just found this pizza shop and nobody else knows that it exists on Yelp, you know? So that was something that was kind of cool for me. And then I think just when you start throwing Jackie Chan into New York, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. And then you bring the original Karate Kid back and he's in New York, which is in New Jersey's where he came from. So it's like we got playing with all of these little pieces. And that's what we were doing with this movie, playing with pieces, to make something feel cool.
Well, yeah, because I was like, I live in New York, and the minute he was like, Ming Na Wen was like, yeah, take the L to the six. I was like, where does this kid live?
Exactly.
Like, I need to know where this apartment is. Like,
You're one of those people that we try and that we're just like only New Yorkers want to know. Like, wait, if that building's there, it's like, yeah,
I was like, hold up, where are you?
right.
Oh, but I also love to like there are so many little things, like obviously his name being Lee and his uncle being Jackie Chan. The entire time my brain was trying to not quote Rush Hour because I was just like, well, that's where I go as a millennial. But it was just like little fun nods, not only to the Karate Kid, but just movies in general. So I wanted to ask you, when you're doing something that is so much kind of paying homage to the original Karate Kid, how fun was it to bring in other references? Or did you have, like you said, Peter Parker, Miles Morales, other movie references that you were like, I really want to bring this in so it's not just we're making a new version of the Karate Kid for other people to enjoy?
I think it was a little bit of both, you know. I think that I wanted to play within the legacy of it, but I think the minute I got the green light to kind of lead with martial arts as an approach to the movie, because I think you don't see so many of those. There's obviously a lot of action across the board in the Wick movies and in the Marvel movies. There's a lot of that action, but I think you get a chance with this, and especially with Jackie, to bring in those elements of that. And for me, it was about like, how can we do real in-camera martial arts? Because we've got a kind of like a green light to do this within this. And then on top of that, how can we make it cool? How can we elevate it from television, which is where it's lived for a long time, onto the big screen and be able to say, okay, well, we're going to be sitting in our seats and those punches feel real because 95% of those punches are real, both on the actors and on the cast. So for me, it was the Drunken Master. It was Dragon Ball Z. It was anime as just as much as it was Miles Morales and X-Men and all of those versions of things pieced together. That's what I was aiming for.
What I wanted to ask too is like I love how it is made abundantly clear. Like it's like no, with Chinese, they tend to like it's most definitely kung fu whenever they are
Mhm.
doing martial arts. Japanese is the art of karate. Like
Yeah.
they're very different, but people, especially in America, have just pushed them into one idea and
Mhm.
it's one art form, and you're just like,
Right.
no, it's this thing. But I like that this movie's like Lee continually is like, yeah, I studied kung fu. Like he's
Right.
like, that's what I studied. How important was it for you as a director to make sure like we as the audience are like, oh, we all thought it was
Right.
one thing, but it now we're like we're learning as well as these characters are.
Well, I think the audience is more versed in kung fu because kung fu is movies, right? So mostly back in the day, certainly it was the influx of kung fu movies was really really important. The whole Bruce Lee thing. It's more it was sort of crafted more as fight based, whereas karate traditionally in film and television is more tournament based. It's more of the sport movie. So what we had was the archetype of the karate sports film and the kung fu street brawling.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like, how do we do those two? And then that in turn led us to this concept of the Five Boroughs tournament, because we've seen many tournaments in Karate Kid movies and TV. So for me, it was very interesting. Was like, how can we just kind of keep the tournament in there, but kind of move through it, but make sure it feels kung fu, but it's also he's kung fu approach to it filmically, but karate inspired moves. That's all kind of baked into the choreography, and even the end, the finale fight is very much a true blend of different blocks, different kung fu, different types of the karate moves in there. And even though we speed very frantically to the finale of the movie, a lot of the moves, if you eagle-eyed, you will see that exactly what they're learning on that roof, you can actually see executed in the final fight.
Yeah, and I also wanted to ask you, I have two last things. One, I wanted to ask you about telling a different teen story. 'Cause I love I'm not okay with this, and I love It's the End of the Fucking World. And those are both very dark teen
Mhm.
stories, and this is
Yes.
kind of the opposite. This is like an
Mhm.
uplifting, hopeful teen story. And how was it switching gears and doing something that's a bit more hopeful instead of,
Yeah.
the darker stuff that you're
Well,
going.
not exactly. Well, normally the stories are about kids wanting to leave, wanting to get away, anything to leave. And what we have at the beginning of this movie is a kid that doesn't want to leave. And so the inverse is baked in right from the very, very beginning. So it becomes a movie about found family and fighting for people you didn't know. To me, that's quite potent. I'm obviously English and I live in America, and I like the idea of, you got to find your family when you ship out somewhere. And that's quite an interesting thing. So for me, I was also excited about the potential of, doing every director's dream is to do a movie. And so for me, it was like, well, what is the audience for this movie? That's number one on my list. Like, who is the audience and what are they looking for? And I'm thinking it's good fights, big heart, great lessons, and great relationships, teacher, mentor, and friends and family. And I think for me, that was what I went into this feeling positive and wanting to do some cool action. So yes, I have the legacy of those dark comedies, but I hope there's a little flavor of that in there in the acting and the cinematography.
Yeah, definitely. For my last thing, and I'll save this for after the release. I growing up is learning that Johnny Lawrence is the better character. Like watching Cobra Kai, I was like, that is the guy. Like I was like, I love Johnny Lawrence a lot now as an adult versus Daniel LaRusso. How was it getting to, as someone who very clearly likes the Karate Kid movies, getting to write for that brief little moment we see Johnny Lawrence at the end of this movie?
I mean, it was amazing, and Billy was so fun. He was a lot of the stuff we improv with him and Ralph. Like they were, it was very interesting that like when Billy arrived, Ralph suddenly switched to sort of Cobra Kai mode, and then they were talking shit, and everything was, a lot of the jokes and stuff for that end sequence was amazing. And you know what felt really good? Cobra Kai is Johnny's story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that knowing that this chapter of the story was going to be positioned after Cobra Kai, it was so nice to know that story had wrapped, and yet he still got a little moment within all of this to kind of round everything out. I think that's great as a Cobra Kai fan, seeing another iteration, knowing that my show is still there. It is really, really good. It's nothing but additive to everything.
Yeah, I was cheering, and I was like we were all laughing and stuff, but I was cheering by that point by myself in that theater. So I was just like, it's my guy, it's Johnny Lawrence.
Yeah, right.
But I love the movie a lot. I think it's such a fun new addition to the franchise, and so thank you so much for talking with me today.
Awesome. You're welcome, Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great one.